This conference is brought to you by CallStack, a total software engineering consultancy.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So exciting to be here in Poland again. Microsoft has been a presence at, React Native EU, now React Universe Conf, for a number of years now, and we're very excited to talk to you about desktop. You might be asking, what's coming for React Native for desktop? If you paid attention to the presentation this morning from Nico and Ricardo, you might not be surprised that, spoiler alert, it's the new architecture. The new architecture is what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, let me take a step back and let's do some introductions. Again, my name is Stephen Moyes. I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft. I've been working in the native platform space for many, many years, the native Windows platform space. I primarily work on the React Native for Windows side of the house, and I'm joined today by Saad.
Hey. Yeah, my name is Saad. I'm a senior software engineer. I work on Office for Mac and iOS. I mostly work on React Native macOS, and yeah, we're excited to show you what we've been working on.
Awesome. Before we talk about the new architecture, it's probably worthwhile to take a step back and look at how our desktop platforms fit within the context of this React universe. And what does it mean for desktop apps to exist within the context of this React Native universe, or React universe? And really, our guiding principle is that you can use your React Native skills to build desktop apps. If you are a React Native developer who's already building for mobile, our goal is to make it so that you can use those same skills to bring your apps to desktop or create entirely new experiences that target the desktop platforms. And we know that this is successful because we're doing it. A lot of our major applications are using React and React Native in various contexts. You'll see some very prominent apps on screen. It's worthwhile noting that a lot of these experiences are shipping at scale to over 1 billion users. And a lot of these experiences are quite large and quite old. Some of these apps are older than I am, and there's quite a challenge in modernizing the native platforms to something that is useful and valid in this new technology sphere. But it's not just Microsoft. It's not just Microsoft that has found success in building desktop experiences using React and React Native. We're also seeing a significant uptick in downloads for both Windows and macOS. This is really a testament to the ecosystem and the excitement that you all bring to this community, and we're very excited to partner with you as you bring your apps to desktop. So you might be wondering, okay, that's all well and good. How is Microsoft helping? How is Microsoft helping me use my React and React Native skills to bring my experiences to desktop? And there are 3 primary ways. One is we keep up to date with core. We want to make sure that Windows and macOS is not some separate, totally different feeling experience. We keep up to date with core. We have the new architecture, which we'll talk about in depth in a moment. And then we provide platform building blocks, some of which actually we had just heard about on stage in the Vision OS context. But with that, I'd like to hand it over to Saad for a moment to talk about what it means to keep up to date with core.
Hi. So first off, we have released React Native Mac and React Native Windows version 75. This is the fastest release we've done for React Native macOS, and it means that you can use, thank you. Yes, you can use the latest version of React Native across all of the platforms that you have. And this was a monumental effort to get that really quick, and I'm really excited about that. If you've been following our development cycle, particularly on macOS, you might know that we haven't always been this fast. Sometimes we've lagged behind on releases. and I want to talk a little bit about why that happens. So first off, we ship to all the platforms we support, which means we have to make sure that everything that we use works. And this year, we shipped to a new platform called VisionOS. So we took a bit of a sidetrack to go make sure that React Native on VisionOS works for all the things that we care about. And we also, in addition to just syncing the 1,000 to 2,000 commits that happens every React Native release, we have to make sure that we keep track of all the API changes and make sure that we adopt the latest things on desktop. So let's talk about VisionOS real quick. So Office ships everywhere. It's on every device you can think of, and that includes VisionOS. And Office uses React Native. So we have to make sure that all of our dependencies and things that use React Native work on VisionOS. That meant that we took a bit of a sidetrack, and we added VisionOS support to a bunch of libraries in the community. Some of these were one-line changes. That was kind of nice. Some of them were a lot more involved. In particular, adding it to React Native Test App means that's a lot easier for other library maintainers to have a VisionOS test app and test their things. So I'm particularly happy about that one. And a special thanks to CallStack and Matt Hargett for helping bring React Native to VisionOS. It would not have been possible without them. And it was a real pleasure to work with them. So back to React Native macOS specifically. In React Native 74, the implementation for Redbox got rewritten on iOS. So we took some time to rewrite it for macOS and adopt it to the latest kind of desktop standards. So we now have a modal sheet that's resizable, that has a proper table view, and I think looks a lot nicer. Also, thank you to Oscar for helping rewrite the implementation to be a lot more scalable. And in React Native 75, we also took time to align our cursor prop that we've had in React Native macOS to more closely match the web CSS names so that you can use more cross-platform code. And this is kind of going along the lines of having more cross-platform React on more platforms. All right, let's talk about cursors for a bit, because I found this one kind of interesting. We've had the cursor prop in React Native macOS for quite a while. That was also, by the way, an open source contribution from Infinite Red, so thank you for that. And that's just been there, it's been sitting there. Fast forward to this year, and we're talking with CallStack because we need to get this hover effect working on VisionOS. This is a VisionOS-specific property where your eyes look, there's a little gaze, highlighty hover thing. And we didn't really know what the analog for this would be on React Native, but without it, React Native apps would not feel truly native. So I go talk to Oscar, I go talk to Mihal, we go figure out, we submit an RFC, and we talk to Meta and other people about it. In the RFC, we ask the question, how would we do this on web? What's the kind of cross-platform way to do it? Look through the www.dc talks, and we see that actually on WebKit, if you set cursor equals pointer on a view, then you get that hover effect on web. And I thought, hey, that looks familiar. That's the thing that we've had in React Native Mac for a while. So what if we just take our implementation, take the subset for pointer, and upstream it into React Native Core? We can then have it for React Native and React Native macOS and React Native VisionOS. And as a bonus of doing all this work, it also works in iPad. So now you can get the Apple Pencil and trackpad hover effects with the same property. Wait, OK, sorry. So this is my section, not Steven's. So next, I'd like to talk about the new architecture. So you already heard a lot about the new architecture from Meta. A lot of the foundational changes you will get on React Native on desktop, and that includes stuff like bridgeless support and React Native tab tools and support for the latest versions of Hermes. On React Native macOS, because we share a lot of code with iOS, we have a pretty consistent developer experience and implementation. So you enable the new architecture with the same flags. You get the same kind of feeling of how to use it. On top of that, we've been working on better desktop API alignments to make sure that the APIs that we have in paper translate well to the new architecture, which I'll talk about in a bit. But before I do that, I'd like to pass it back to Steven to talk about React Native Windows.
Perfect. So on macOS, we have a slightly easier job. There's a lot of shared code that we get from the iOS implementation, and there's a lot of consistency across the Apple platforms. Windows is a little bit different. As a part of the new architecture, one of the things that we did is we looked at how the the React Native for Windows platform itself was architected, and we used the new architecture as an opportunity to explore how we built the fundamental React Native for Windows architecture. And one of the pieces that came along with this is that we updated to the modern Windows platform. I imagine there's a ton of Windows devs in here, in this audience, so this will be old news for many of you. But I wanted to take a minute to explore what this new architecture means for Windows specifically. Earlier this year at Conf, Olga and Naman showed a slide talking about the next 10 years of React and React Native, and I wanted to basically take a minute to explore what this meant for the Windows slice of the world. In order to do that, I need to take just a second to talk about the old architecture. React Native for Windows as an out-of-tree platform has separate, it's a separate package, it has a separate repo, but it builds a lot of the capabilities based from core, and underneath React Native for Windows is the Windows Platform API. This is the native platform that sits underneath, and for better or worse, it shipped with the operating system. The React Native for Windows architecture was based on UWP, which is not our modern Windows strategy anymore. But shipping with the operating system means that the underlying platform iterated very slowly, and it meant that sometimes your experience might look different based on the version of the operating system your app was running on. And so with the new architecture, we basically took this as an opportunity not only to change our underlying platform to align with React Native core, but also to update our underlying guts to be consistent with the modern Windows platform. And the modern Windows platform is built on top of the Windows App SDK. The Windows App SDK is a set of features, APIs, that actually ships separately from the operating system, which is awesome because it means that we can iterate more quickly. It means that we can take advantage of new capabilities that didn't exist previously. And it means that you get a consistent user experience for your app regardless of which version of Windows you're targeting. What's inside the Windows App SDK is a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of really powerful features that come along with the Windows App SDK, including the WinUI 3 control library. This is the native set of controls that users expect on Windows. It also includes a variety of other features and capabilities, some of which are kind of just table stakes, things like app lifecycle, things like the composition and scene graph layer, things like notifications, but it also includes new innovations like the Windows Copilot library that we announced earlier this year at Build. The Windows App SDK is really our delivery vehicle for the latest innovations of Windows APIs. If you're interested in learning more about the Windows App SDK specifically, I'm including a link here to Chigusa and Jeffrey. They gave a talk at Build. I mentioned that the Windows App SDK is not specific to React Native. It's really our shared underlying platform across all of our modern client platform endpoints, including WinUI and WPF even. So if you're interested in learning more about the Windows App SDK, you can check us out at Build. So in summary, we're kind of killing two birds with one stone with the new architecture on Windows. And what it means is that you will get faster and more consistent updates that are decoupled from the operating system. It means that you're going to have new capabilities from the platform. And it means that the underlying platform itself is the modern Windows platform. You can have faith that if you're building a React Native for Windows app, this is building on top of the latest and greatest Windows capabilities. But it bears mentioning that the new architecture for Windows is a breaking change. So if you are a library maintainer or if you are building a React Native for Windows app already, when we migrate to the new architecture, it will be a breaking change. Okay, I've been talking a lot, but I wanted to hand it to Saad to show what this means in practice.
All right, so that was a lot of words. Maybe some of those words made sense to you. Maybe some of those words didn't make sense to you. Most of them didn't make sense to me in the beginning, so that makes sense. But let's come up with like a maybe simple example of what re-platforming all of React Native Windows actually means. So last year at App.js, I showed off how to make a menu bar app using React Native macOS. This is something you can only do with React Native macOS. You can't do it with Mac Catalyst, for example, because you need access to the lower level system APIs. We thought about what would be the equivalent of this on Windows, and on the old architecture, that wasn't really possible. We didn't really have access to those APIs to do something like this. But on the new architecture, we can go and make a system tray app that runs React Native. And on Hermes. So lots of words, but simple example.
Perfect. Thank you, Saad. Like I said before, the new architecture is a work in progress for Windows specifically, but there's a lot of things that work today. There's a lot of capabilities that already work. You can try it out. Our ask is similar to Ricardo's ask earlier this year, but come try it, come partner with us. Things that work today are, we've got a lot of common APIs. We've got a lot of parity with Paper. We got a lot of parity with Core. And it's possible to deploy your apps to the Microsoft Store, even on the new architecture today. Some of the things that are still in progress are full WinUI 3 support, updated documentation. There's still some API gaps around accessibility. The new architecture by default, as an out-of-tree platform, Windows lags behind just a little bit, but we'll be flipping the new architecture switch soon. Maybe not in 76, but soon. If you're interested in more specifics about our roadmap, you can visit aka.ms/rnw roadmap. So what does this all mean? The new architecture for desktop. It means that you can absolutely start experimenting with the new architecture today. Please give it a shot. Please let us know how it goes. For library maintainers, I imagine we have some library maintainers in the room. Start thinking about the new architecture and desktop. If you're not already thinking about the new architecture, start. If you're not thinking about the new architecture as it relates to desktop, please start. The new architecture is a really big investment. Microsoft is all in on the new architecture for desktop, and we're very excited. It's a really big step forward. I've got another link. So that was about the new architecture. I wanted to wrap it up by talking about some of the other tertiary things that you might not be aware of for the desktop platforms. When you're building a React Native app, it is native, which means that you have all the capabilities to tailor your app for each platform, and the same is true on desktop. But the user experience expectations on desktop are a little bit different. And so at Microsoft, we really focus on the fundamentals so that you can focus on delight. You should be able to delight your desktop users in a way that you might not be able to if you're just building a web experience. So what does that mean? We have a variety of APIs that are specific to desktop, accessibility APIs, color, styling, theming, unfettered access to the native capabilities like you would expect, multi-window APIs, and input. And if you're interested in seeing what capability, what toys are in the toy box, what tools are in the toolbox, we have some gallery apps that you can check out. You can download the React Native Windows Gallery app from the Windows Store. We also, earlier this year, started work on the macOS Gallery, and you'll notice that these experiences are tailored for each platform. So go check those out. Everybody pull out your Surface Book and download the Gallery app. Again, I'd like to pass it to Saad to talk about keyboard events specifically and how our input APIs have evolved over the last couple of releases.
Thank you, Stephen. So one of the areas that is a big desktop-specific building block is keyboard events. And specifically for the new architecture, there's a bit of a story to tell here. So first off, we've had keyboard events both on React Native Windows and React Native macOS for quite a while. It was one of the first things that we had to add on top of React Native Core to make sure that we could ship good desktop apps. However, we did implement them in subtly divergent ways. I'll try not to go too much into the specifics, but because of the way that the JavaScript thread and the native thread are not always aware of each other on the old architecture, you need a way to have the JavaScript thread tell the native thread, these are the keyboard events I'm handling, so don't double handle them. That's a little bit complicated, and we both kind of ran into the same problem and solved it in slightly different ways. It would be okay if it was just different prop names, where React Native Windows had key down events and React Native Mac had valid keys down. But actually, it was even worse than that. They had different behaviors, they had different semantics, and unless you were an expert on both platforms, it wasn't really easy to write cross-platform code. So this caused real difficulty for us as we started writing more features and experiences on desktop. And then in comes new architecture. And we have to decide, do we keep this API difference? Do we want to keep having these different behaviors and different props on the two platforms? Or do we want to take this opportunity to step back and align the API so that we can have that in Fabric and have better cross-platform code everywhere? We decided the latter. And to that effect, React Native macOS has added support for the key down events prop to align with React Native Windows and help you write better keyboard events. That's been since React Native 74, so yay. And then we, at the same time, deprecated the valid keys down prop. It still works. We are going to work on updating all of our code internally to make sure that it's stable. And eventually in the future, we will remove the prop so that we just have the one. Thank you. I'm going to give it back to Stephen now.
Perfect. To recap, Microsoft has invested, again, in enabling you to use your React and React Native skills to bring your apps to desktop. We covered these 3 ways in which we are helping to support you in this journey. There's a lot more that Microsoft does in the React Native space, even beyond desktop. Things like RN Test App, RNXKit, Align Depths. There's a lot of other tools that we didn't have time to touch on. But again, Microsoft has been hopefully considered a key part of this community. We've really tried to give back and make sure that we're supporting you as you are navigating your React and React Native journey. If you're interested in learning more, we have a bunch of talks that you can check out at aka.ms/React Native videos. We also have a variety of blogs, getting started guides, a whole bunch of great information. If you're going to take a picture of a slide, this might be a good slide picture because it's got all of our links. Yeah, to wrap it up, my name is Stephen. I'm joined by Saad. We're very excited to see what you build. Thank you so much.
Thank you.